the buck stops here. I'll do something about it.
Why don't we go ahead and, or actually maybe a minute or two early. There's no law yet that says we can't start a minute or two early. First of all, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming out today. We're probably at about 565 town hall meetings, something like that. So the reason for them is to hear from you folks. It's not for me to stand up here to give a big speech or anything. To get your input in our form of government. When I go back to Washington on Monday, I want to know what you're thinking and your suggestions, and council means a lot to me. And the notification, I think we've put out an emphasis that we're trying to work on the issue of identity theft, and it's a major issue for a lot of folks. If you're affected, you know exactly how destructive it can be for your personal finances, and what a mess it is to try and resolve that kind of problem. The penalties are not as great as I think they should be today, and it's very hard to track it. With the new technologies, it's easier for folks to be able to invade your privacy. And I think with the new the health care bill that you're going to see, probably a lot of people trying to scam the system and scare people to get calling them to get information. You should know if you're on Medicare, you should not have to ever do anything as far as the health care bill is concerned. So if somebody calls you, forget it, hang up to do something, but don't give them any of your information. So I would appreciate any input on that particular issue as we try to write legislation to address that problem. Just a few things. Obviously, the big issue today that gets all the press and interest, the situation in Syria. Certainly, I have not seen any justification at this point for us to unilaterally attack Syria. It's tragic. It is outrageous that people were killed with chemical weapons. I'm not sure that us killing more innocent civilians over there actually is an answer that we need to solve that problem. To punish Assad by killing his civilians, I'm not sure he really cares about his civilians over there. And that's, to say that we're not doing it to change leadership in the country, I don't know what the purpose is. So give me your insight, your thoughts on that particular issue. The end of this month, we will complete the fiscal year, so the government funding will run out on the end of September. What we need to do, I think, at this point is to, since the Senate has not done any appropriation bills, we've done 4 of the 12 in the House of Representatives. We're going to end up in what they call a continuing resolution, which will continue to fund the government at current levels, probably at least through December, the first part of December at least. Then we look at the debt ceiling debate, which will come projected in mid-October, and that's where I think there's an opportunity to address the sequester, to actually get a larger bipartisan agreement as to a way forward that will increase the debt ceiling, which must be done or we default. But also to have numbers that we can actually work with going forward that holds down spending, hopefully addresses the real drivers of our debt, which are the mandatory portion of the budget. When you look at the budget, about 2/3 of which is mandatory or entitlement spending, plus interest on the national debt. Only about 1/3 of it is what we call discretionary, half of which is defense. That portion has been reduced by about $100 billion in the last 3 years. The real driver of the increase in spending is the mandatory side, increasing at about 8-9% a year. When you've got 10,000 people like myself, the baby boomers signing up for Medicare and Social Security every day, 70,000 a week, and that's going to go on for at least a couple decades yet. It's simply not sustainable as it is. The Social Security Trust Fund will be bankrupt, the Medicare Trust Fund bankrupt, and then you're looking at either dramatic reductions in benefits or massive tax increases to pay for it. So I'm very hopeful that we can get a large agreement looking at the debt ceiling negotiations, and also with the sequester. We all know that we have to cut spending in Washington, but to do it with a meat-axe approach like the sequester is not smart.
Explain sequester.
Well, what it is automatic cuts of about $85 billion this year out of the discretionary, that 1/3 of the vote. Automatic, it's across the board. Their veterans benefits are exempt, a couple other items, but what it does, half of which cuts defense, the other half comes out of other domestic discretionary accounts, a lot of social programs. I was just at a meeting with the juvenile justice people in Polk County. It's a group from statewide, but it cuts their funding. A lot of things. If we're going to cut spending, let's do it smart. Get rid of redundant programs and not just cut everything, good, bad, redundant. Let's actually prioritize spending if we're going to actually have the kind of spending reductions that are needed. But again, I will tell you the real problem is in the mandatory or entitlement portion of the budget. So,
What about Social Security?
what about it?
What about it in connection with sequester?
Well, and it's not affected by sequester. That's mandatory entitlement spending. It's just only on the discretionary portion, the 1/3 of the budget. Is all the sequester cuts. Yes, sir.
Denmark is the only other industrialized country, democratic country that has a debt ceiling besides the United States. Why do we need a debt ceiling?
It's supposed to limit our, well, it's like you go to the bank to get a line of credit and you come up to a certain amount that they'll loan you. And that's in essence what the debt ceiling is. It is basically to try and have people focus on how much we're spending and the debt level that we're at. It's been stuck at about 16,699 billion now for about 90 days because they've been doing extraordinary measures to not exceed the 16,700 billion where the debt ceiling actually is. So they haven't been paying into retirement funds. They haven't been doing.
But why is it needed if everybody else besides Denmark is able to get along without it? Why do we need a debt ceiling?
I would think just it's for us to understand the amount that we're borrowing and also to have a limit as to what we can borrow. I mean, that's the idea.
Okay, well, isn't it true that
critical?
a large portion, or at least a significant portion of the national debt is actually owed to the Social Security Trust
Social
Fund?
Security, Medicare, a lot of the trust.
So then why because of the debt ceiling or debt crisis, whatever, should there be any talk of cutting Social Security?
That's not part of the debts, necessarily part of the debt ceiling debate. The problem with Social Security, with Medicare going forward is in fact that in 20 years the trust fund and Social Security, there's no cash there now, but the IOUs that are in there are going to all be depleted. And that's the problem. And then you get out, about 2030, and basically you're going to have to dramatically reduce benefits, Social Security benefits, or increase taxes to pay for it. The last 3 years, we have not put money into the Social Security Trust Fund. It's been totally a pass-through. More people are signing up for Social Security disability. It's kind of the new retirement fund. You go to a doctor and say, I've got mental anguish. They put you on Social Security disability for the rest of your life. And that's a way a lot of people are actually, if they can't find a job, that's the way they find a way of income today. But there's actually more money going out of Social Security than what's coming into it today.
However, isn't there a ceiling where they no longer take money out of your check for your Social Security?
Right.
Well, why don't we eliminate that ceiling so people can keep adding to the Social Security account as long as they're working? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Whoever thought of that should have been just plain common.
Well,
I have 3 sons, their ages 50, 45, and 42. They don't pay a thing to Social Security, so why should they get it out? They've all reached a level. My husband reached a certain level, nothing was taken off his check either.
It's like $110,000 earned income in Social Security.
Why
So
isn't
they pay-
everything subject to Social Security? If everybody plans to take some out, why shouldn't everybody put it in?
They do.
But indefinitely, as long as they're working.
You know, there's
But
also,
they don't.
well, up to income of $110,000, I believe.
$110,000. Think of all the people that make more than that. Of course, there's a lot of us that make less, but there's an awful lot out there that made more. And they're still complaining that there's not going to be any Social Security for them when they get to be 65. Well, my point is, why should there be if they hadn't paid in?
Well,
Just because they reached $110,000.
You should also, but take in mind, the benefits are tied to how much you paid in. So if your income, your earned income is only on earned income, if you had $1 million you paid, you would probably be getting $80,000, $90,000 a year in Social Security benefits, and the low end is those people who get $500, $600 a month, or $600.
And that's another thing right there.
So it should be.
There's some conversation out there that those people that get all that money don't really need it. And so why should they get it? Even if they put it in, if they're millionaires,
They
they're
should
millionaires,
have to
they're never
qualify.
ever going to use it, they're never ever going to need it. So why are they allowed to take it out? Why isn't there a line there?
Based on the amount that you paid in, there is a limit. There would not be if in fact you're doing what you're saying. There would be no limit as to what the benefits are.
You wouldn't have instructions that way.
If it's based on earned income, you will also have the folks who have the greatest ability to take their income in other ways. So what you're going to see is a subchapter S person who takes now as earned income, they will take that as dividends, which are not subject to Social Security.
Why not?
Because it's not earned income. It's only on.
You
earned-
basically just said it is in their earned income, they're just calling it something different.
Right. That's what the.
So it is earned income. So
Not-
why
not-
can't we define?
Not under the tax code.
Well, that's, okay, so it needs changed.
Change the tax code.
That's what we say.
That
Just
would be
saying,
different.
it will not help the solvency of Social Security.
Why not?
Because you're gonna have people getting a lot higher benefits, and you're also gonna see a lot of people divert their incomes in other ways that they can.
I think laws can be passed. Get them all balanced out.
Yeah,
much
that's
better
your
than
job
it
as
is
a
today.
legislature to fix things like that.
But the whole idea of Social Security, it was never meant to be a welfare type program, and that's exactly what it would become in a sense. And that's the problem. Yeah.
I just wanted to state an opinion.
Okay.
I think if federal government would do more to get rid of fraud and waste in government, there'd be money for everybody and everything, including Social Security. The fraud that goes on with the Social Security disability is horrible. And I just think we need to do something to get on top of that.
I couldn't agree more, and I continually look for that line item in the budget that says waste, fraud, and abuse so we can cut it. But it's really hard, and you got people, I don't care what line of business or what program that's out there, people are gonna find a way to skirt the rules or to get it, and that's what we've got to crack down, absolutely.
Right.
And it's.
Yeah, you're never going to get rid of all of it, but there's a lot out there that could be gotten cleaned up.
And there's about $300 billion a year of redundant programs.
Which is waste. Yeah.
I mean, and God bless our teachers, and they need extra education, but there's over 70 programs for teacher education programs. Why not have 2 or 3 that actually work? and fully fund those, if you're gonna do it, rather than have all of the, every one of them has their own, bureaucracy, basically, administrative costs to operate. Why? And that's,
Does anyone,
and the frustration I have, quite honestly, Congress's role is the power is the power of the purse. And with the Senate not doing any budget for 3 years, and finally doing a budget this year that was totally $1 trillion in new taxes, which never happened. We're never able to actually do appropriation bills that would eliminate these programs or cut spending and priority in some programs, increase spending where we have to. Things that actually work, that need more funds. Because it's so dysfunctional, all it does is really empower the bureaucracy in Washington. The arrogance today is something like I've never seen, because there's no accountability. They know that we can't touch them because the system is dysfunctional.
It's fake.
The bureaucrats.
And are you talking
Look at
about?
IRS. Look
Well,
at, no, that's as far as Congress not being able to agree, between the House and the Senate to actually come up with a joint budget resolution where you could actually do appropriation bills because they are so far apart. And what happens is a continuing resolution which funds everything at last year's level with no adjustment, prioritizing, cutting, increasing, and that's what happens.
is a budget bill the only way to eliminate agencies?
You could do it, deauthorize bills, but the easiest way to do it is just cut funding.
But you said that can't be done because the bureaucracy is so.
Right now, is the way we're set up.
Could you possibly try a different approach then?
Have you ever heard a congressman come home and talk about eliminating something?
Well, if they have a good idea.
No, they come home and talk about the new bill they passed and how this is gonna solve the world's problem.
Right.
So we're adding more all the time rather than eliminating.
We're asking you maybe to be different.
Okay, the regulatory scheme is what I think we really need to focus on also, and what's happening because there's no control and bureaucracy. They're writing regulations that have gone far beyond the intent of Congress originally. Yes.
Why did you vote for the 7th Amendment that killed the Farm Bill?
Vote for the Southern Amendment that killed the Farm Bill. That was an option to give. It was to give states the option to have a work requirement, which I agree with. It was not mandatory. States would have that option.
Okay, and also the Republicans are in control of Congress. Why didn't you pass the transportation bill, which was your own transportation bill?
We have a transportation authorization bill that was passed last year. It expires next year.
Okay, but the one that's coming up is different?
I don't know who you're reading questions from.
Didn't you just have a transportation bill that just before the recess that didn't pass?
My appropriation bill, which is
That's what you're
transportation,
talking about.
the transportation bill, mine is HUD and transportation. Are you talking about the authorization or the appropriation? Appropriation. We got up against the end of the schedule and they thought that there were other priorities to finish. I would hope that I would be able to finish my bill when we go back next week, and certainly this month.
Who's they?
Leadership.
You mean Bonner?
Well, Eric Cantor is the one in charge of the schedule, and we got up, it was a Wednesday evening, we read through the bill. We just had, all we had left was limitation amendments at the end of the bill, but there were 3 or 4 authorizing bills they had to get done before Friday,
So you always do what Bonner wants? You can't?
Cantor controls the floor.
Why?
Yeah,
That's
why?
what a majority leader does.
Oh, he's a majority.
Yes, sir.
I see a lot of gray hair in this room, so I assume there are a lot of retired people here. We have lots of time to read the newspaper and watch this news. And, I guess that what I've gained is that 80 to 90% of Iowans and Americans want some kind of gun control. 80 to 90% of Iowans and Americans as a whole don't want to go to Syria. 80 to 90% of Iowans and people in America want some kind of immigration law passed. What? You're just one of 535. What can you do?
Well, and certainly, there will be immigration legislation passed in the House. It may not be whatever, it's not going to be the Senate bill. Certainly, those issues need to be addressed, all of them, and I think if we can get to regular order and we didn't have all these other distractions like Syria and things like that, we could actually focus in on what I agree are priorities for the American people.
Do you feel that the members of Congress have a handle on the tenor of the rest of us, what we're thinking and choosing?
Why do 565 town hall meetings?
Doesn't seem to make much difference in Washington, though.
I couldn't agree more.
Did I play that back? Are you responding to him saying you would support gun violence protection legislation?
I would have to see what exactly that entails.
And certain immigration bills you would support?
Yeah. No, certainly, as far as securing the border and having a system of verification that works to be able to track people who are in the country. 40% of the people came in legally and forgot to go home. And what we need to do is to actually have a system to know where those people are.
What about a path to citizenship?
Excuse me?
What about a path to citizenship?
Define that.
A means by which an illegal immigrant can eventually become a citizen, as is in the Senate bill.
Earn their way.
I'm not going to support something that would put them in priority over people who are going through the system legally at all.
I don't think
Don't
anybody's
think
asking
he
for
does.
that. Is anybody asking for that? Honestly,
That's what
I
the
don't think
Senate,
it gives-
Senate bill gives status immediately before you ever reach the Superior Court.
It gives a
Status.
not a citizenship status. It gives them a card to say, just like the Dreamers, right? They get a card. They can stand up and be recognized and get a job and so on. That's all it gives them. And then eventually they'll get a citizenship
Which
if they
there
follow
are
all
people
the.
waiting 10 years outside of the United States to not get that green card that you're talking about.
So that needs to be resolved also, right?
Absolutely.
So
But
we need to have put it all together for us and do what you think is right, but honestly,
Okay.
saying no to every little thing is not getting the job.
It takes 10 to 13 years for that path to citizenship.
But they get
It's not an
status,
immediate.
they get legal status immediately.
They get a provisional
Foreigners
status.
In the country before people who have been waiting
They get a
outside.
provisional status which requires them to pay a fine, pay their back taxes, learn English, learn civics, a variety of things like that. And that provisional status doesn't guarantee them citizenship. They have to go through several more steps, which again have to do with fines and learning and taxes and things like that. And work status. They also have to be employed the entire time.
I think we're genuinely puzzled, Congressman, because I know you have feelings for the immigrant population in Iowa. You understand the seed business and the importance of immigration to high technology as well as the labor requirement. I think you have a good sense of that, but I think you disappoint me that you don't try to put it together and come through. Deal with it, please.
I belong to the American Men's Society, which means this is not a stupid question. I don't understand why we can't send in the Navy SEALs and assassinate Assad like they did Bin Laden. I think that would be an excellent idea, and it would solve the problem with a minimum of their citizens getting killed.
This goes to my point. This is my first time on meeting. I'm here because I love this country. I'm a baby boomer. I grew up on the shoulders of what Tom Brokaw is called the greatest generation. And I believe that. And I've been having discussions for years with my father. My father dropped out of high school at 17 and joined the Marine Corps in 1943 and fought in the South Pacific for liberation. I have his picture here with me. A cousin who died over the Pacific as a bomber pilot. I grew up in a nation that was that beacon of light in the world. We were respected. We were a nation of liberation, global liberation. And I talked to my father, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because he says, this isn't the country I fought for. This government. And I said, well, in fact, Congressman, I want to thank you because I wrote, or I called your office. I called Senator Grassley's office, Senator Markey, Senator Davis, since he's going to run this area. And I asked them a question. And you are the only one who responded. The only one, and I mean, this was a very important question as to where we stand in the world as far as use of power and whether or not that's covert. But, I look at, I grew up and I just so admired this country. We stood for what was great. We stood for what was honorable, ethical in the world. And now the lines are getting blurred. The situation, we got off track. And I sat with my father and I said, oh, I need to find out what went on. Because, and looking back, I'm just horrified. Some of these presidents I admire so much. They did great things. But you hear about crafting the legacy after the presidency. That basically that's saying, let's leave the wars off. Let's, and I go back and I went, why all of a sudden are we so hated, specifically, by the Muslim deals? Why are we so disrespected by even our closest NATO ally, Britain, because of the Iraq situation? So I went back and I started looking, well, they didn't just wake up one day and say, well, we don't respect you anymore, we hate you now. It was things we did. Things we did that brought this into our life. We have terrorism coming into this country because they hate us. That's right. Because of what we did. And I looked back at my dad and I said, Dad, I have to do this because I love this country. I said, it's hard to criticize a country, but if it's off track, you need to shed a light on it. I went back to the 1950s. We overthrew a democratic, elected republic or democracy in Iran, royal.
Hey, you're kind of dominating things here.
Yes, I know. But I worked on this for months.
We all came to ask him questions, not to hear your screech.
Will you listen to his question after you hear me out? I'll be brief as I can, sir.
You're not being brief.
The Bay of Pigs, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. This came out in 2000. Nixon sabotages peace talks to help in his election. Iran-Contra affair. And this is the most torturous of all, is the fact that we had a president that authorized torture in violation of the Geneva Convention. And I'll leave all this for you, minus the pictures. But, under torture and penalties, it calls on Congress, the Geneva Convention calls on Congress to handle this or to turn it over to the United Nations. And we need an investigation as to why we got all that intelligence wrong in Iraq. We sent 4,000 men plus and women to die over there. If we investigate Benghazi more than we do that. And we need to look into our own business and police ourselves before we can be that shining light
There is
And I-
a book down to the library right now on the Iranians, which tells just what he's saying. And what I came to realize, those people assassinate their own leader when they don't like him. Which we did with Kennedy, which wasn't right. Somebody assassinated the assassinator.
You know,
But they could take care of their own, and frankly, I've been expecting that. I've been expecting somebody to assassinate Assad because he's a very poor leader.
Assad.
Bashar Assad. He was trained as an optometrist. You people read from the library and find out about these different people. The book on Iran is wonderful. I'm not even through with it yet, so you gotta have it. Go
No,
ahead.
he was practicing in London when his older brother
It's
was
killed.
driving his Maserati 180 miles an hour in the airport and got killed.
Yes.
And they brought him back to replace his father.
And I said this yesterday, he looks like a wimpy little Hitler. And I don't understand why somebody hasn't assassinated him like we did Bin Laden.
Could I change the subject a little bit?
Yeah, listen, let me go on some folks that haven't asked questions.
This is really quick. I'm trying to sort out the Affordable Care Act. Is it still in the interstate commerce of, for instance, we in Iowa, we buy policies from other states?
It does not allow that.
Repeat the question.
She asked if in the Affordable Care Act, if you can purchase insurance across state lines, which it does not allow. And that was, what it will do will be to have these exchanges supposedly in each state. I see the paper today where we're only going to have one choice, maybe an exchange in Iowa.
I thought there were 6.
There were two, and one of them is maybe probably full on. Yeah.
I just want to explore your thinking. You authorized President Bush to go to war against Iraq, a disastrous war for Iraq and our country, when there was no WMD and they hadn't done one thing to us. I don't want to strike Syria either, but Syria has used a chemical weapon, so to be consistent, why wouldn't you be in favor of striking Syria?
Well, you remember Saddam Hussein killed about 6,000 to 8,000 Kurds with chemical weapons.
Long before,
Well, I mean,
long
to say
before
that
your
he-
resolution.
to say that he didn't use it.
But that wasn't used as a reason.
I didn't say that he did.
Sir,
I didn't say
Saddam
we-
Hussein killed Iranians when we were backing Iraq in that war. He used chemical weapons against the Iranians.
And Kurds.
Yes,
His own
people
his own
and
people,
the
right.
Iranians as well.
Right. No, and, you know, the authorization for Iraq, there was, I mean, the world intelligence all said that he had threatened to use weapons of mass destruction outside of Iraq. And he had done it in the past, and there was a universal belief that he had weapons of mass destruction.
That's universal.
Entire coalition agrees with this. Clinton, criminal.
Yes, sir.
Don Bailey from Waukee. I'd like to thank you for your support of Eastern Dallas County for the Dallas Road. We really appreciate it. It's going to be a huge improvement for our transportation. I know you worked real hard with the city to try to end Waukee and West Des Moines. Greatly appreciate it. And also, I got a question. Could it be that the jihadists use the chemical weapons on the people there and try to make it look like the government did that?
There are reports that are saying that also. While most, the U.S. intelligence believes it was the Assad regime that did it, there are other reports saying that it may be Al Qaeda who did this with the idea of putting Assad under attack.
Well, personally, I appreciate your reluctance to do anything there. I think that's admirable. And then the other thing I had, postal reform. I'm a retired postal employee, What can you tell me about that?
If you have the answers. The biggest thing certainly is the payments into the retirement fund.
Right.
That are way beyond what is necessary, and that is what is really putting a crimp on the Postal Service. I'm very concerned that there's a reform bill that Darrell Issa has put forth. I personally think that bill would be devastating to rural Iowa,
Exactly.
rural America.
Good.
And we've outside of the retirement, as far as management, the way the post office run, we've got to find a way to make it profitable. And I'm not sure I have all the answers. If you could give me insight as to what you think, I would appreciate it.
Well, I've got some information on you.
Okay.
But I appreciate your position on that as well.
Now, I've been on bills to fix the retirement thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's devastating, I think, to small business, rural Iowa. For example, close the post offices down. It's a step back.
Oh, it'd be very detrimental to rural Iowa, rural America. Yes. It's good to see you at another meeting. Here's an Organizing for America, right?
Correct. Organizer.
Okay, that's all right.
Well, again, thank you for having these. I think these are great. Great input from folks. One of the frustrations I hear the most from the public, and I've heard them at a lot of your town hall meetings, is the gridlock in Washington. Gridlock in Washington, the fact that Congress can't seem to find compromise, and compromise has sort of become a dirty word among some folks. 80 of your House Republicans are saying they're going to defund the government, shut down the government over Obamacare, which thank you for not joining that group, I appreciate that. But my question is this. Obamacare is clearly controversial, but when you poll people on the individual provisions, for instance, like pre-existing conditions, being able to get insurance now, people like that. In terms of compromise, all the Republicans talk about is repeal. If there's a way to